Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we are diving headfirst into one of the most astonishing, world-changing stories of human ingenuity and determination. The colossal engineering projects in China that have redefined what infrastructure can mean in the modern era, and that have given this nation the reputation, half joking and half in awe, of being the global infrastructure maniac. Not in a derogatory sense, but as a tribute to the almost superhuman efforts of Chinese engineers, who seem like real-life superheroes of concrete, steel, and vision, who keep producing projects that appear almost impossible until they stand completed before our eyes, reshaping coastlines, spanning seas, and boring through mountains to create a new reality of connectivity and prosperity. Because in a country as vast, populous, and rapidly modernizing as China, infrastructure has become more than just roads and bridges. It has become the very bloodstream of economic and social development. And as an old Chinese saying goes, to get rich, build roads first, which is more than a proverb. It is a blueprint that China has followed with relentless focus, knowing that prosperity flows where people and goods can move smoothly. And so the nation has turned infrastructure construction into both a practical strategy and a showcase of national strength, building faster, bigger, and often more daring projects than the rest of the world combined. So much so that today China is not only the world's second-largest economy and its leading manufacturing powerhouse, but also the undisputed leader in engineering capability, admired and studied across the globe for projects whose scale, technical difficulty, and economic impact are simply breathtaking. And nowhere is this clearer than in the field of transportation. Because in just over a decade, China built and put into operation over 45,000 kilometers of high-speed rail lines, a network larger than the rest of the world combined, dwarfing Japan and Europe, who pioneered the technology but took decades longer to build far smaller networks. And in doing so, China didn't just catch up, it leapfrogged into leadership, ushering in what experts call the high-speed rail 4.0 era, with trains that are not only fast but efficient, sustainable, and locally innovated. And this is only the beginning of the story, because beyond trains we find hydropower marvels like the Three Gorges Dam, still the largest and most complex hydropower project on Earth, or the South-to-North Water Diversion Project, which is the most ambitious inter-basin water transfer scheme in human history, redirecting rivers to quench the thirst of entire regions, or the land reclamation in the Nansha Islands, hailed as a miracle of reshaping nature itself. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping feats of all are the mega bridges and tunnels that bind once isolated islands, ports, and cities into seamless wholes, creating what can only be described as steel and concrete symphonies over and under the sea, projects that push the limits of what human engineering can achieve. And one such jewel is the Zhuhai Bridge, the world's largest island-to-mainland connection, a staggering 1,650-meter main span that leaps across the sea in a single breath and held the crown as China's longest-span bridge for a decade straight. But even this is just one link in a chain, because together with the Jintang, Tumen, Shandozhimen, and Sengong bridges, a nearly 50-kilometer network of megabridges was created, tying together island clusters that were once divided by treacherous waters, transforming local economies. And later, the 8-kilometer Yushan Bridge rose to link Yushan Island with Daishan Island, followed by the 25 kilometers of Shandaishan Bridge, and together with the 32.5-kilometer Donghai Bridge connecting Shanghai to Shayangshan Island, and the Liuheng Highway Bridge now under construction. These connections don't just shorten travel times, they birth new land, new ports, and new industries, including the world's busiest cargo port, China's second-largest offshore petrochemical base, and even new fishing grounds, turning once isolated waters into hubs of trade and prosperity. And if bridging the sea is already monumental, China decided to go further still, setting its sights on an even greater challenge, the undersea world. And here we encounter one of the boldest projects ever attempted by humanity, the Jintang Undersea Tunnel, stretching 16.18 kilometers in total length, with 11.21 kilometers driven by shield machines beneath the seabed, a feat that combines geology, technology, and sheer determination in proportions the world has never seen. Because this is not just any tunnel, It is a high-speed rail tunnel designed for speeds of 250 kilometers per hour, vastly outpacing the Channel Tunnel between Britain and France at 160 kilometers per hour and Japan's Seikan Tunnel at 140 kilometers per hour. And to achieve this, China had to push tunneling technology beyond previous limits, deploying colossal shield machines like the Zhuhai, whose cut-ahead is nearly 15 meters across, as tall as a 5-story building, a rotating ring of steel fangs that gnaws its way through rock and soil while enduring water pressure at depths of 78 meters below the sea surface. And to ensure precision, these machines are guided by the Beidou satellite navigation system, which corrects every micro-deviation in real time. Because in an undersea tunnel, even the smallest error compounds over kilometers until disaster becomes inevitable. And so accuracy had to be measured not in meters but in millimeters. And to make things harder, the geology beneath the seabed is treacherous, alternating 28 times between hard rock and soft clay, forcing engineers to modify cut-aheads with water injection pipes for sticky layers, to reinforce sealing systems against crushing water pressure, and to upgrade drive systems for stability over long distances, while also managing asymmetrical digging since one machine, Yongju, advanced 4,940 meters from the Ningbo side where soil was softer, while Dinghai dug 6,270 meters from the Jushan side through rock, until at last, in a carefully chosen stable rock formation, the two machines met with pinpoint accuracy, an underground handshake that marked one of the greatest triumphs of engineering precision in history. And the result is not only the world's longest undersea high-speed rail tunnel, but also a symbol of how human ambition can bend the harshest environments to its will. And when you zoom out to consider the big picture, you see how all these projects, bridges that fly over the sea, tunnels that snake beneath it, railways that streak across the land, dams that tame rivers, and reclamations that birth new shores, are not just standalone marvels but part of a unified vision, a nation reweaving its geography to accelerate trade, strengthen its economy, and position itself as an infrastructure leader whose projects are studied and sometimes envied by the rest of the world. Because while other countries debate, delay, or scale down, China builds, often at breakneck speed, often at jaw-dropping scale, and always with the conviction that engineering is not just construction but destiny, reshaping history's trajectory. And this is why the world pays attention. Because whether you see these feats as national pride, global marvels, or both, one thing is undeniable. China has shown that infrastructure is not just about getting from point A to point B. It is about redefining what is possible for human civilization itself. In the end, the alignment error was kept within just 2 centimeters, a feat of precision that would have been considered impossible only a few decades ago. Yet it marked just one step in the monumental undertaking of boring through the ocean floor. The final challenge lay not in the digging but in what to do with the colossal machines once their job was done. For when two titans meet underground, there is no exit ahead and no way back. And so engineers devised a daring solution known as shedding the shell, dismantling the shield machines piece by piece and hauling out their innards while leaving their massive steel casings behind, permanently reinforcing the tunnel they had carved, a method at once practical and poetic, where the tools of creation became part of the creation itself. According to plan, the Jintang Undersea Tunnel will be fully bored through by the end of 2026, with trains set to race through its depths by 2028, allowing passengers to travel from Ningbo to Jushan in just 30 minutes, finally erasing the isolation that the island had endured for centuries. And yet, as officials whisper privately, the stakes are far higher, for this tunnel is not just a passage to Jushan. It is a rehearsal for something larger, perhaps the audacious vision of a Taiwan Strait Tunnel, a project that if ever attempted would represent one of the most ambitious engineering feats in human history. To understand how close China is to this possibility, one must look back at its earlier triumphs, most notably the Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau Bridge Tunnel, a 6.7-kilometer underwater passage constructed 40 meters beneath the sea, where engineers faced the timeless paradox of tunneling underwater. The ocean is full, crushing, shifting, and merciless, so how can humans carve a void beneath it and keep it from collapsing, flooding, or drifting out of alignment? The answer was immersed tube tunnel technology, in which trenches are dredged across the seabed. Fabricated concrete tunnel sections weighing 76,000 tons each are floated, lowered, aligned with hair-width accuracy, and then buried beneath layers of sand and gravel, a method so complex it required dividing each section into 8 smaller parts before welding them together into colossal 180-meter units, each one capable of carrying 6 lanes of traffic plus service tunnels. In total, this project devoured 330,000 tons of steel and 2 million tons of concrete, an amount equal to constructing 8 Burj Khalifa towers, while over 3,000 workers labored on uninhabited Noto Island in a factory built in just 100 days for the sole purpose of producing the 33 required tubes, lowering them into place one by one until, after 1,400 days, the final piece, known as E30, was carefully dropped into position, adjusted for 26 hours until it aligned with millimeter precision, and sealed by divers who worked blind against currents and darkness to complete a project that stunned the world and was hailed as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. And yet, as with all great undertakings, the story is not only about technological triumph but also about hidden costs. For while netizens compare China's rise to a sponge absorbing knowledge from both success and failure, critics point to the shadows beneath the steel and concrete, to the vast land acquisitions, deforestation, and displacements that mega-projects demand, to the environmental scars left behind from air and water pollution to the disruption of fragile habitats, to the haunting precedent of the Three Gorges Dam, which displaced millions and forever altered the Yangtze River, and to the Belt and Road Initiative, which, though ambitious, has raised questions about sustainability and debt. Defenders argue that these sacrifices are the price of progress, that no civilization rises without reshaping the world around it, while skeptics warn of social inequity, labor exploitation, and the silencing of dissent. That too often accompanies such massive works. Yet even amidst debate, admiration remains, for China has become the first nation since ancient times to pursue construction not as isolated projects but as a civilizational identity, an echo of dynasties that raised the Great Wall or the Grand Canal, now reborn in steel and glass and concrete, as if construction itself flows through the bloodstream of its people, fueling a momentum that no one seems able to stop. And so the question lingers. Are these tunnels and bridges and railways symbols of human progress, or wages placed on an uncertain future, gambles that risk social and ecological collapse, or perhaps both at once? For in the end, whether one marvels at the speed and ambition or recoils at the hidden costs, one truth is undeniable. China has shown that the future is not something to wait for, but something to build. And as new projects loom, from the Pinglu Canal to possible Transstrait tunnels, the world watches a nation, redefining not only its landscape but the very limits of what humanity dares to attempt.